Veronica presents Part 14 of the AI Repertory Theater's production of Lorene on the Lam by Marie Elena Zuniga.
Hey, it's me again. Been a while. I'm glad to see you stuck around. I'm here to remind you what's happened with the McClunes. Back in New Mexico, Livy spilled the beans to the cops about what she witnessed in Indian Cave way back when. And Sammy had decided to go back to Red Boiling Springs.
But first, we're headed to Nashville, where Lorene and Fanny Montgomery are conversing over hot coffee and pecan pie. Can't you just smell it? Chapter 65. They sat at a granite counter, Fanny pouring more coffee into a mug emblazoned with "World's Best Grandma," and Lorene devouring about the best pecan pie she swore she ever ate in her life.
You sure know how to bake, ma'am.
Oh, stop calling me that. You make me feel old, even though I am. Call me Fanny.
Like I was saying, Fanny, you sure can bake a mean pecan pie.
She beamed and gulped down some coffee.
My mama taught me. Sorry about yours. Had to be hard with you being in prison. How'd you end up there anyway?
Lorene told her the lowlights of her life, at which Fanny nodded and consoled throughout.
I reckon I deserve it all. I made some poor choices.
We all have. Look at me, marrying Josh.
But he's so famous and good-looking.
Was good-looking. As to fame, it's not what most folks think.
How'd you meet him?
Fanny took another swig of coffee, then a bite of the pie.
I was young and done with Carthage, and much like yourself, headed to the big city. I wanted to live in Nashville, and went to work as a secretary at one of the record labels. Well, who strolled in one day but Josh, all handsome and shiny like a new penny, predicting his own success, all full of himself. I was taken in by it all, but truth is, I really did love him, at least then.
Charlie Pistol all over again. Then again, that bamboozler never really had a record deal. And truth was, Lorene never loved Charlie. Not the way it seemed Fanny loved Josh at one time. She wondered what made two people who really did love each other once start to hate each other. So much so that one spouse wanted the other dead.
I can see it in your eyes,
Fanny said.
What happened? Like I said, fame isn't what most folks think. It can ruin a body if you don't have a strong upbringing. Thankfully, I did. But Josh didn't. He was weak in character, and out on the road touring so much, he started sleeping around, doing drugs. I stayed home and raised our kids.
You got kids?
2, all grown now, 4 grandbabies. They live over in Franklin, and they're about the only good things that came of our marriage.
Lorene was quiet for a bit.
Sorry to hear about all that. It had to be hard.
Not unlike yourself, life throws us obstacles along the way. Guess it depends on what we do with them. I know one thing, I sure wasn't about to give Josh a divorce for all the misery he caused me. And so, he decided to kill me. Wanted to make it look like a robbery, I'm sure. And I have a hefty insurance policy that would help him get out of debt.
Debt? But he's rich, ain't he?
You would think. Nope. He squandered most of it. I'm the one with wealth from my daddy's real estate deals. And when I was dead and gone, good old Josh would get lots of money.
How did you know? I mean, that he wanted you dead and gone.
I have friends in the business, and in this town. One friend told me to watch my back. She had heard that Josh put a contract out on me. I laughed at first. I thought he was too stupid to pull off something like that. But then I started to notice I was getting too sleepy at nights and realized he was putting something in my drinks. Got onto his laptop and saw some Google searches about how to fake a robbery and making it look like murder. Told you, dumber than a bag of nails. He was getting weird too, not that he wasn't already, but he would take a lot of personal calls, and one day I overheard him in the library. He didn't know I was standing outside, and he said, "Yeah, well, make sure she doesn't come back to talk about it. Once she's dead, she's dead." Well, that was it. I started sleeping in the guest bedroom because Josh was away so much of the time, and I carried my trusty shotgun with me. When I heard you two come into the house, I knew Josh had hired someone to kill me.
I hope you know that I would never.
Fanny rested her hand on Lorraine's arm.
Child, I know you've done prison time, but I'm a pretty good study in people, especially after working at that shelter many years ago. And I see you've had a hard life and let men abuse you.
Fanny paused and squeezed Lorraine's hand.
Here's where we make a deal. Neither of us will allow that to happen again. Ever. Okay?
Her eyes were wide and inviting, and all Lorraine could do was nod, her own eyes growing moist. Fanny began gathering the dishes and putting them in the sink when in the distance, sirens wailed. Tilly must have blabbed about Splat going to kill Montgomery. Who else would have sent the police here?
Guess I don't need to call the law after all. Besides, they need to come get that feller upstairs, now. What are we gonna do with you, Lorraine?
She sure didn't want to go back to prison, and she really needed to get back to the cave and fulfill her grandpa's wishes.
I have a huge favor to ask, Fanny.
Better make it quick.
I need to get back to Red Boiling Springs real fast. You'll have to trust me on this one. Could I borrow one of your vehicles? Once they cart me off to prison, you'll have it back.
Fanny put a hand on one hip and eyed Lorraine.
You know I'm going to have a hard time explaining this.
Seems that happened with most folks Lorraine ran into.
You can tell them I stole it. At least I'm good at doing one thing in life, stealing vehicles.
Girlfriend, you're good at a lot more than you give yourself credit for. You just need to find that out yourself.
Fanny dug into her jeans pocket and threw keys at Lorraine.
It's the white SUV in the driveway. I'll open the gates for you. Get going before the police get here.
Lorraine gave Fanny an unexpected hug and rushed out of the house. Chapter 66. The police cars whizzed by her, lights blinking and sirens wailing, not even knowing Lorraine was on the lam again, heading out of Leaper's Fork and right back to Red Boiling Springs. Bless Fanny for not giving her over to the police. She had some unfinished business back home, not only burying her mama, but seeing to Ace and, most of all, doing what her grandpa had told her to do in that letter. She drove until the first bit of light rimmed the horizon. She wondered what had happened to Tilly and Sister Sarah. She never thought she'd miss those two, especially Tilly, but truth was, they were the only company she'd had the last few days, and what story was Fanny going to tell the police? Lorraine had to trust her right now. She had no other choice. As she wound her way toward Red Boiling Springs, she finally reached the perimeter of town and found the side road that led to the cave. The SUV bumped along it, through dense woods, until the gravel ended. Lorraine parked the vehicle, grabbed the flashlight from the glove compartment, then went on foot, climbing up the steep hill until she reached the mouth of the cave. She stood there for a few seconds, trying to remember what her grandpa had said. She needed a minute. Finding a boulder beneath a huge pine, she sat. Morning was breaking. Around her, all was still. Pure. Clean. Cool. She had forgotten how peaceful it was in these hills, how the wildflowers bloomed in clumps of purples and yellows, how the air was scented with the fragrance of honeysuckle and pine, and how the sun rose above the hills like a red glowing jewel. Her grandpa had been right. God's creation was a gift. So was life. From now on, she needed to lead a better life. No matter what happened, whether she ended up back in prison or not, she had to start doing more good for others. Lorene pulled the letter from her shirt pocket, where she had tucked it away, and read it again. She took her time, taking in every word. A wren warbled far off as she began to read.
Dear granddaughter, if you are reading this, it means I am no longer in your life. But first I want to tell you that I love you. No matter what's happened in my past, I always loved you. Should your ma come upon this letter, I have asked her to give it to you, and I trust that the Lord will make my words known to you at the right time. God's timing is not our own, and His ways are not our ways. There are things I've needed to tell you, but I stopped myself because I wanted you to think highly of me as your grandpa, and not some scoundrel and sinner. But I have been both. When I was a youth, I was involved in a bank robbery.
Lorene still couldn't believe it. When she had read those words at her ma's bedside after Emily first handed her the letter, it was as if someone had punched her in the gut. How could the man she had adored and loved be a criminal?
I was young and foolish, but my brother Lonnie Smith convinced me it was a quick and easy way to get rich. I have learned in life there is no quick and easy, but slow and steady wins the race. I never knew I had a brother till he came and found me. He already was a bad seed, and I wish now I had not let him sway me. But as I said, I was young then. We robbed the First National Bank of Nashville. I was the driver. Lonnie went in and got close to $250,000 as well as jewels from safety deposit boxes. Forced the bank manager to open the boxes and also take as much cash from the vault as he could and stuff all of it into a metal case. We came back to Indian Cave and hid the loot and vowed we would come back in 3 months and split the money. But in the meantime, Lonnie was arrested for the robbery of a liquor store that went bad. He shot and wounded a customer. He was put away for a long time, but I was never found. The police could never pin that Nashville bank heist on us, even though I waited every day to be arrested. The guilt ate me up. I married your grandma, and when she died young from the tuberculosis, I felt God was punishing me. I knew I had to get on the straight and narrow. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Savior and started going to church. I realized I had done wrong, but I didn't know what to do with that money. It sat there in that cave, haunting me, eating me up alive, reminding me of my past sins. But Lonnie never forgot the money was there. Neither did your pa, Nathan. I'm not proud of him and the way he turned out. I guess his mama dying young hurt him worse than I knew. He turned to evil, but he also knew about the bank loot I had stashed away. When he was a boy of 10, he followed me to the cave one day with his pal Sammy McClune and saw me with it. I know he went back there many times to try and find the money, but never did. I kept moving the case to different hiding places so it could never be found. But maybe by the time you're reading this, he or your Uncle Lonnie has already found it, or someone else, and taken it away. If they haven't, I want to tell you where it is.
Lorene stopped again, the stillness almost deafening. She was about to recover cash stolen from a bank robbery that her grandpa had committed.
Go inside. You'll see a rock there with the initials LS that I carved so we could find the treasure. Find that rock, and instead of following the arrow I marked, go to the left to the first narrow tunnel. Crawl inside it until it comes to a dead end. On the right wall, you'll see a black rock that looks out of place. Take it out, and behind it, you'll find a deep hole carved into the wall that hides the case with the money and jewels. After you've found it, I want you to do the right thing. Do the right thing. I never did, but you can. And only you can decide what to do with it all. You can take it, have all the things in life you want and need, or you can do something else with it. I may never see you again, child, as there have been threats against me, and your life too, which is why I'm writing this letter. I may be forced into a decision I don't want to make, and as much as that decision would be painful, I'd do it only because I love you, granddaughter. I can't let harm come to you. Just know I'm praying for you, here on earth or in heaven, wherever I may be. And I am praying you'll come to know God's forgiveness, as I have. Love, Grandpa Mac.
The letter fell on Lorraine's lap. The right thing? Had she ever done the right thing? And what had happened to her grandpa? What decision did he have to make that was so painful? Was it suicide? Or had he not acted in time and met with foul play because of this money? Had he died in this cave because of some robbery he had committed as a youth? That's all that crime ever did, lead to heartache, misery, and death. She had seen too much of that in the last few days and in her lifetime. She had done too much of it herself. Standing up, Lorraine took a deep breath and went into the cave with her flashlight. She did as her grandpa had said, found the tunnel, shimmied herself in on her stomach, and located the black rock. Even though it was heavy and she was cramped in a narrow space, she managed to dislodge the stone from the wall. It opened to a deep hole. Her skin pimpled as she reached deep inside, her fingers touching cold metal. She pulled out a heavy, rusty case. She bellied her way back out the tunnel, clasping the case, then wiped the black earth from her clothes and went outside, blinking into the bright morning sun. She found a huge rock and sat on it, breathless. Stopping for a second, she craned her head and looked around as if someone might be spying on her. No one and nothing but the overwhelming silence. She took a deep breath, paused, and opened it up. Her jaw dropped. Stacks and stacks of cash. $100 bills. She thumbed through them. How much money was here? She had never seen so much in her life. She could leave here and never be seen again, live a life of luxury. Her fingers poked beneath the stacks of bills, where she found a smaller box. She opened it, her eyes dancing with the light of jewels of all kinds, diamonds, rubies, pearls. And how much was all this worth? If she kept all this, she'd never have another worry in her life again. She could fly to Bora Bora and live with Elvis, if he was there, or go any danged place she wanted and never be found again. She closed the lid and noticed a side pocket in the bigger case. Poking her fingers inside, she touched metal and took out a small key. She held it up to the light. What did this unlock? She shrugged and put it in her jeans pocket. Do the right thing. Do the right thing. What was that? What was she supposed to do with all this? She wanted to keep it, all of it. She knew what her Grandpa Mac would want her to do. She needed time to think it over. For now, she would put the case back where she found it. She went back inside, crawled on her belly into the narrow tunnel, and placed the treasure into the hollow space, hiding it with the black rock. At least no one would find it for now. Lorraine left the cave, deep in thought, and was trekking back to the SUV when she stopped cold. Her spirit seemed to sense their presence a second before she actually saw them. There they stood, the police. They must have been scouring the woods for her. Well, she knew they'd come eventually. She had been waiting, and now, in a strange way, it was a relief. She took a deep breath and felt a heaviness lift from her body.
Lorraine, sorry to meet you again under these circumstances.
One of the officers said.
Probably don't remember me. Police Chief Purdy. I knew your grandpa and pa. This here is State Trooper Tim McCoy. Sorry to say we have to take you into custody, Lorraine.
Lorraine hung her head, nodding, while McCoy cuffed her and read her rights. Then he walked her to a police car waiting on the side of the road, put her in the back and drove off, with Purdy in the car behind them.
Chapter 67. The trip on an airplane was exciting for Livy. When she and Sammy had come out to New Mexico, they drove. She had never been on a plane before. Her brother sat next to her but hadn't spoken a word to her, not since the police had come and fetched them. In the past, he would get mad and scream at her. Now he just looked numb or dead, like a critter that knew it had been cornered and had no fight left. It wasn't just Livy phoning the police about the jewels and how she came by them that had made Sammy this way. She knew what else was troubling him, something that couldn't be helped. What was done was done. Oh well. She looked out the window at the clouds, amazed that she was way up here with God. Surely he was around somewhere. A police officer sat in the aisle across from them. He had said he was taking them back to Red Boiling Springs so Livy could tell her story to the other police there. It was an unsolved mystery, he told them, and all this time Livy had the answer, and she didn't even know it. The young woman that was called a flight attendant sashayed down the aisle and asked them if they'd like anything to drink or eat. Livy giggled.
I'll have fish sticks and macaroni and cheese,
she said. Sammy nudged her arm with his elbow and gave her a nasty look.
2 diet sodas,
he said.
Yes, sir.
The flight attendant said and sashayed back down the aisle.
At the Lafayette police station, Police Chief Purdy read off the list of charges against Laureen: escaping from prison and grand theft. Why no attempted kidnapping of Tilly and the nun? Well, at least they hadn't cited her for the attempted murder of Montgomery's wife, a deed that Splat had forced upon her. That meant Fanny hadn't told the law about her. Yet.
We'll keep you here for a couple days until we can extradite you back to Houston,
Purdy said. Laureen couldn't figure out why he was being so nice, especially since he was a man. She plopped down on the sagging bed in the cell. Right now, she was flat out exhausted, hungry, wanted her mama. She felt tears fight to stay behind her sockets. They didn't. Purdy cleared his throat.
Well now, Laureen, I knew your mama. She was a good woman. I was a young officer when your grandpa went missing and was on that case. Decided to give you some time so you can bury your mama before they haul you back to Texas. As I see it, you'll be around when the McClunes return and hear their side of the story and what really happened that night in the cave. I know you were close to your grandpa, and I figured it might give you some closure.
The McClunes? Sammy and Livy? What in tarnation did they have to do with her grandpa's disappearance? Laureen threw him a puzzled look.
Seems they knew most of what happened that day your grandpa went missing. We suspected them for a while, but couldn't find anything to tie them to Mac's disappearance. Looks now like Livy was in the cave that day, hurt herself, and was trapped in there when everything happened. Seems she and Sammy moved out to New Mexico, and she called the police all these many years later. State police out there are flying them in so they can give their testimony to us here.
When are they coming?
Should be here by late afternoon.
Purdy started to walk away when Laureen stopped him.
The 2 women, Tilly and Sister Sarah. What happened to them?
A curious look crossed Purdy's face.
That woman, Matilda Davis, insisted she came to you for help, and she isn't going to press charges. The nun says she was in a car accident, but that she was happy to be on board to help with everything. Felt it was God's plan, so she isn't pressing charges either.
Laureen wondered how much Tilly had said about Splat's plans to kill Josh Montgomery and asked about it.
Matilda had a story that this Splat guy that hooked up with y'all was going to murder Josh Montgomery. She was partly right. State police went right up to the Montgomery mansion and found that Splat feller hog-tied and bleeding in the bathroom. Seems it was Montgomery's wife that was the target, and Splat was the hitman. She got the better of him and wasn't hurt, and the state police took Splat into custody. They're out looking for Montgomery now to find out his involvement in all this.
Hopefully they'd catch that wife-cheating SOB soon. And Fanny, bless her heart, hadn't said a word about Laureen's connection with all that. At least Splat was behind bars. But then, so was she. It didn't matter. They both deserved it for various reasons. She didn't give a hoot about Splat, but for reasons unknown to herself, Lorene really cared about Tilly and the nun, and asked Purdy where they were.
Davis refused to go back to Texas and went with the nun back to a women's shelter in Carthage. That Catholic sister works there and said Davis would be safe in Carthage, and they both seemed agreeable to the idea.
Thank God. A feeling of compassion swept over Lorene that surprised her. At least they were safe. Safe. An unexpected tear escaped along with a sob.
Chapter 68. The town of Lafayette had grown and changed since Sammy last saw it 25 years ago. More buildings, more cars, strip malls with fast food places. Modern man had encroached on these quiet hills. His stomach plummeted as they approached the police station, his sister beside him in the police car. She looked out the window, humming some gospel tune about being saved, and then turned to Sammy.
I told you I was sorry. It had to be done. You was treating me real mean.
Sammy had dreaded this day, but now that it had come, he was grateful to his sister, in a way. Now he could have his peace. It never had come with the money. At the police station, Police Chief Purdy greeted them. Sammy recalled him as a younger-looking man. Now he had more skin sagging around the jowls and neck, although he was still lanky as ever.
Sammy, Livy, been a long time.
Never thought I'd see Tennessee again. But now that I'm back...
He paused, his eyes welling with tears.
I missed home a lot.
Purdy cleared his throat.
Well, I'm going to take you back to the interrogation room for a talk. Do you want a lawyer?
Livy tugged at her brother's sleeve.
Do we need one of them, Sammy?
Sammy shook his head.
What I have to say has to be told. I deserve what's coming to me.
Well, if you change your mind, we can get one for you.
Sammy and Livy sat at a table across from Purdy, who turned on a tape recorder.
So what happened that night in the cave?
Livy blurted out.
I done run off that night. Oh, it came a terrible storm, and I hurt my leg, and Sammy come looking for me. Ain't that right, Sammy?
Purdy leaned back in his chair, crossed his arms, and gave Sammy a questioning look.
Like Livy said, she ran off like she always did, and I went looking for her.
Sammy said.
It came a bad storm that night and hard to see. I decided she must have went up to Indian Cave. I looked around and couldn't find her. Went up the next afternoon, looking again in case I missed her. And when I went inside, someone was already there.
Purdy waited.
Nate. Nathan Johnson was there.
What happened?
Nate stood there all full of himself, gloating like he always did, that he had come to get the case, that he was tired of waiting for me to do something, and nothing I could do to stop him.
Had he seen your sister?
No, she was hiding behind a big rock. I didn't even know she was there.
Purdy sat forward and waited.
Seems that somehow Nate had already found some of the stash. Couldn't figure out how he done that because I didn't see no case around. But I did see some jewels spread out around on the ground. Wasn't sure how they got there. Seems them jewels wasn't enough for old Nate, though. Said he still wanted the cash, and asked what I had done with that case. I told him I didn't know nothing about it, or why those jewels were about everywhere. He pointed the gun at me and told me that we was going to get Lorene right then and there. That we was going to kidnap her and make Mac tell us where he hid that case because there was lots more money to be had. And I asked him if Mac didn't tell, what was he going to do then? He got this evil grin on his face and said he wasn't past shooting Lorene or Mac if need be. That's when I told him I didn't want no part of our plan anymore, to hurt Lorene or Mac for that stash.
Purdy stood up and started pacing.
I heard tales of something up in the cave,
Purdy said.
What was it?
Money. Lots of it. All from the bank heist that Lonnie and Mac pulled off when they were teenagers.
Lonnie?
Lonnie Smith. Seems Mac had a brother no one ever knew about. Ended up in prison from another crime, I heard. Bad blood runs in the family, I reckon.
Go on,
Purdy urged.
I knew for a fact there was money in that cave because I saw that metal case when I was a kid and always remembered it. Nate dragged me there when we was about 10 years old, bragging on it, how it belonged to his pa and there was a fortune inside of it. I don't think at that time Nate really knew where that case came from or what was inside it. But in his twisted head, he decided it belonged to him. When he got out of prison, he learned about the bank job from his Uncle Lonnie. I hadn't heard from Nate in years and years, and then he ups and calls me, out of the blue, just like that. Says he hears through the grapevine I'm in need of cash. Tells me he's come up with this plan to threaten harm to Laureen unless Mac tells us where that case is hid.
Sammy paused, wringing his hands, and looked away from Purdy. He took a deep breath and continued.
I didn't want to do what Nate said, but I was in a bad way. Nate blackmailed me. Told me he'd let my boss and other folks in town know about my gambling trips to Nashville.
Purdy raised his eyebrows.
I got into debt. I needed to get away from...
He stopped and looked at Livy, lowering his eyes.
I had to get away from everything, so I started gambling. Lost a lot of money.
Livy gave her brother's arm a slight playful slap, her voice high-pitched.
I wondered where you went them weekends. And gambling. How could you do that, Sammy? It's a sin, you know.
Sammy didn't respond and looked up at Purdy.
Can I get some water?
I'll take me some, too.
Livy chirped. Purdy returned with the water, and Sammy gulped it down. He asked Sammy to continue.
I knew my only way out was to find that case again. So I started following Mac and threatening him about the cash and finding it. But Nate didn't think I was moving fast enough. One afternoon, Nate paid me a visit I wasn't expecting. Said we had to move on our plan right quick because his Uncle Lonnie was paroled and was coming after that case. He said we had to go get Laureen and make Mac tell us. I told him I put no store in that, even though I did have need of that money. And that was part of the fight that night.
What happened next when you were in that cave with Nate?
Purdy asked, still pacing.
Well, Nate was still pointing that gun at me. I started screaming at him, telling him he was a lowlife, that I had stuck around and done my duties in life, but he had just run out on his own daughter and was gonna hurt her, and I wasn't about to let him do that. And then he came toward me, real cold-like, ready to fire that gun, and I lunged toward him and...
Sammy stopped and started sobbing. Livy patted him on the arm, trying to calm him down.
It happened so fast. I managed to grab the gun and I shot Nathan. He was dead in a pool of blood.
That's right, officer.
Livy jumped in.
That's just what I recall. My brother done shot Nathan Johnson. Yes, sir. He done shot him cold dead in that cave. I'm sorry I had to tell on you to the police about the murder, Sammy, but you was treating me real mean.
Purdy stopped and looked Sammy in the face.
We always wondered why Nate Johnson disappeared off the police radar. But then, ex-cons like him usually are no account, so we never looked into it. What did you do with Nate's body?
Sammy started to cry again, covering his face with his hands.
After I found Livy, I told her to wait, and I drug his body all the way back to our house. And I threw him into the well out back. Sealed up the well that night with bricks. Sweet Jesus, forgive me. What I done was wrong, but I had no choice. I didn't.
Sammy tried to calm himself as Purdy asked Livy what she saw in the cave that night. Livy straightened up, seeming to be proud that attention was now focused on her.
Why, I done found those jewels on the ground of that Indian cave. I done figured it was my hush money.
Hush money? For what?
Purdy asked, sitting down. Livy got that queer look in her eyes that Sammy knew too well.
God sent it to me to hush up about seeing Sammy kill that poor Nate feller. God was telling me to keep quiet about all I done saw, so that Sammy and I could have pork chops and apple fritters and biscuits in our bellies. So that's what I did. I done kept quiet all these years.
I'm a mite confused, Livy. Were there any other folks in the cave that night?
Purdy asked.
Yes, sir. 2 men came first before Sammy done come and found me. These 2 men were yelling real loud at each other, fighting, and I was scared, real scared. And it was storming real bad.
She stopped and whispered, leaning into Purdy.
I get real upset when folks get loud and angry.
What happened then, Livy? Purdy continued.
Livy straightened herself up again and grinned.
Well, Mr. Police Chief, I stayed still for a long, long time. They was fighting something terrible, and I think I done fell asleep. When I woke, they was finally gone. So I crawled out and found all them jewels just spread out for the picking. Took some of them pretty pieces and hid back behind a big rock. I was hurting real bad, and I done fell asleep. As I recollect, I woke up later when I done heard footsteps. I was going to holler for help when I saw it was that feller, the one that came to our door of an afternoon. I recognized him all right. Slick kind of feller he was. Then I saw Sammy come in, and that's when the 2 of them started screaming and fighting, and Sammy shot that feller real bad. Nate Johnson, yes sir, that was his name, I done found out.
The room grew still, and it seemed that Purdy was collecting his thoughts.
Well, I thought you should know we found a body in that cave just last week.
Sammy lifted his head, puzzled.
Way back in one of them narrow passageways. Seems it had been there for years.
Who was it?
Sammy asked.
Don't know yet. M.E. is backed up in Nashville, and we're still waiting to hear. But sounds like it was Mac Johnson. Emily Watkins came down and identified it as Mac. Skeletal remains were wearing Mac's clothes the day he disappeared, and also had his wallet in his jeans pocket.
Purdy stood up and started pacing again.
I'm puzzled as to who those first set of voices belonged to, the ones before Sammy and Nathan came into the cave and started fighting. Did you recognize them, Livy?
She shrugged and gave him a silly look.
I recollect one of them was that of Mac Johnson. Can't rightly say, though. Been a long time ago, and my memory ain't as good as it once was. If it was Mac, don't know who he was a-fighting with. Only thing I do recall is seeing Sammy shoot that Nate Johnson feller, and I'll put my hand on a Bible for that deed.
Purdy scratched his head in frustration.
All we know is that the day Mac went missing, we found his cap on Big Gap Bluff. So either he jumped off the bluff and some critter drug his body away and we never found it, or his body is the one we just found.
I want to go home now, Sammy.
Livy interrupted.
Back to our real home in Red Boiling Springs. Can we go now? Can we, please?
Sammy gave her the best smile he could muster.
I can't go there, Livy. Not anymore. Never again.
He broke down in sobs.
We hope you enjoyed part 14 of AIRT's production of Lorene on the Lam by Marie Elena Zuniga. For more stories, visit veronicapresents.com. You can help us grow our audience by rating and reviewing this show. Lorene on the Lam is available in print and ebook editions on Amazon.com. Thanks for listening.